Hi everybody. I wanted to thank you for doing the video introduction boards. I know some of you struggled with getting the video to work or to upload, but I'm so glad that I asked you to do that because it really let me get to know you all as people. It's so easy with online classes and learning. You lose sight that there's a person on the other end. It's easy to just view you as your discussion board post. This was something new I tried, and I'm really glad I did. So hopefully it wasn't too painful on your end if you were having trouble um, getting your video to upload or record or anything like that. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing it. I learned a lot about you all, and I feel like I got to know you as people instead of just a discussion board post. So, in the spirit of Funds of Knowledge, I thought I would respond too so you could learn a little bit more about me. So, growing up, well, let me just preface it and say I am currently single but looking. I have two dogs. I live in Wilmington. I'm born and raised in North Carolina, so outside of Charlotte. And I'm going to talk about my funds of knowledge situated in my immediate family, so the way that I grew up, and then leading into where I am now. But so just to give you that background. So home language, my family speaks English. I wish I spoke another language. The more that I travel internationally, I'm envious, but then also embarrassed that I don't speak another language. But English it is. Family values and traditions. So I come from a Christian family. My parents and my grandparents still go to the same church that they've gone to for decades. When I go home, I will go to church with them. Holiday celebrations, Christmas, Thanksgiving are big. Birthdays are big. Um, the other ones, we'll celebrate them like the 4th of July. My immediate family will celebrate that together if I'm home. The like Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving, those are extended family come in and we'll celebrate that all together. Caregiving, so like I said, I do not have kids, so I'll pass on that one. Friends and family, I grew up in the same county as the majority of my extended family. Both sets of grandparents also lived in the same county, and so there was definitely a lot of visiting grandparents, and um, so I grew up playing sports, and if I had a basketball game or a softball game, my grandparents and aunts and uncles may come and watch. For, like I mentioned, birthdays, we would almost always, and we still do, have some kind of barbecue for people's birthdays, and so the extended family would come over and things like that. Um, Growing up, I lived in a cul-de-sac, and so all the families would come out and we would have barbecues or potlucks and things like that. And that's Rebecca, when I read your or when I listened to your video, it just brought back so many memories of doing that too. Um, I absolutely loved the neighborhood that I grew up in as a child, and it's because we were so close knit. And even now, my parents are still friends with those neighbors, even though everybody has moved out of that neighborhood. Everybody still keeps in touch, which is pretty cool. Family outings, beach, that was a yearly vacation. We would always go in the summer for a week to the beach. Um, my parents would take us to the library for things like that, and there was an occasional picnic. And actually, no, I take that back. So I have family that lives in Asheville, and we would go um, pretty often. We'd make like a weekend trip or a day trip to the mountains, and we would have a picnic and either go hiking or uh, meet that family for lunch and things like that. But um, household chores. I'm currently trying to teach my dog how to work a broom. That could help a lot. Or I would take her doing the dishes. I hate doing the dishes. Um, so obviously live by myself, so I do all the household chores. Um, I don't like all of them, but I do them. Growing up in my house, it was when we got to a certain age, my sister and I, we were expected to do what was age appropriate. So if we were old enough to scrub a toilet, that's what you were going to do. Set the table when we were younger. Um, do the dishes, do our own laundry, things like that. So it was very age appropriate, and I think part of that, my mom was a teacher her whole career, so she understood developmentally appropriate things like that. Um, Educational activities. My parents were really big, and they still are big about um, cultural activities, and so we would go to museums and places like that a lot. What's interesting when I was thinking about this, I now find myself doing that too, and I think it's because that's how I was brought up. But when I do travel and go to different cities and countries, I want to go to museums or culture places, art places, to really learn about wherever I am, about their culture and their history. Um, so that's something that I didn't think about, but I really do value that as an adult now. Taking a walk in the neighborhood, yes, but the neighborhoods that I grew up in, they were all so like a subdivision, um, not like let me go walk around the community. But what I do find interesting, so I do value walking and exploring your community. So when I was a classroom teacher, I taught in an inner city school, and we would go on walking field trips around the neighborhood. And it was always interesting for kids to recognize different places. And either we might walk past their church or a convenience store that they go to, or the, what do you call it? Produce market. And so it was interesting. So I do value that, and I just brought that through in my classroom when I was teaching. Favorite TV shows? I don't have a set favorite. I will watch random things, but I will say one show that helps me relax and really like makes me zen is the Great British Baking Show or Great British Bake Off, whichever it's called. Oh my gosh, if you haven't watched it, it's so soothing, and I could be a big nerd, but I think it's on PBS, but I also watch it on Netflix. Family occupations, like I mentioned, my mom was a classroom teacher for many years, and then she moved into she was Title I pre-K coordinator until she retired. So she went from second grade for 20 something years, and then got her BK license, and then she stepped into the pre-K world. And that's how I got in the pre-K world. My dad, the majority of his career, he was a supervisor for OSHA. So a lot of you probably are familiar with OSHA. Um, my parents are both retired now, so they're off doing great things. Um, Scientific knowledge, yeah, we grew up recycling. We still do recycle. I recycle at my house. My parents do too. Exercising, I'll be honest, it comes and goes, but I am proud of myself because in October I joined a gym here in Wilmington, and I've been going consistently, and I've noticed how helpful that is, not just for exercising, but just the mental aspects are, I'm seeing those benefits too, so I'm gonna keep it up. I don't know that I have additional funds of knowledge. I will say one thing. I've noticed as I travel abroad that I reflect more on my funds of knowledge, and I don't know how long it would take to change your funds of knowledge and the things that you do, because I feel like it's so ingrained from when we're kids. But I will say visiting so many different cultures and countries has really made me reflect, and so I'm very grateful to have those chances to travel, because I feel like that's one of the biggest takeaways you could get is reflecting on your beliefs and what you know and what you do, and what do other people around the world do. So you'll hear more about my travels throughout the semester. Whenever I do travel, I always visit early childhood settings. So, and the reason for that is to bring it into my teaching. So, um, hope you enjoy that as much as I do. But okay, that's enough about my funds of knowledge. You have coming up at the end of this week where you should look um, at some peers' funds of knowledge and then compare and contrast to how you relate to them and vice versa. All right, have a good afternoon.